All right, there's a group of people that I work for, the 32 members, Democratic members of the Iowa Senate. I work with this group of 17 of us who are the Senate Democratic Research Staff. So we only work for state employees, but we only work for the Democratic members of the Senate. There's similar caucus staffs for each of the groups. Most of the people in our office work on policy. I work on communications, and there's one other person who does just communications. And then we have a lot of helpers who come in to help us. All these people are communicators, and they're all very good communicators. They would not get elected if they were not good communicators. But that does not mean that they know much about Facebook. And so there's things like that that we try to help them with. And like I said, just from what I'm hearing right now, everything is in change. There's constant flux. Politics and the legislature is about information, so all these changes are impacting us. And I feel more and more like I'm falling behind. When I started 10 years ago, I was the first person to bring in a digital camera to the legislature. Oh, there were as far as our sort of office. And the wonderful things we could do with a digital camera, and why didn't we have that before? And so it was nice to feel like I was ahead of the curve. Now, I'm trying to run and catch up. People like Representative Schulte are showing us the way forward. So, just a little bit about the legislature. This was 2002. Red is Republican, blue is Democratic. So you see the change to where we're at right now. Really, this is happening in these big rural districts. She's a Republican from Cedar Rapids, and there's Republicans in the Quad Cities. But often it's the urban areas where the Democrats are controlling. Eastern Iowa, too, is, of course, really good for us. But here you see Council Bluffs, little dots of blue in the big groups of red. So the districts that determine who's going to be controlling the legislature, in a lot of ways, are the swing districts. This one is District 9. It's up by Waverly. See all those little newspapers, a couple little radio stations, a lot of towns, all spread out. It's a whole different communications problem than working in Cedar Rapids, which I wouldn't envy anyone. So the approach that I've taken, that I try to work with, is you've got a lot of people who don't follow state issues at all. You have a small group of people who follow it very closely. And then you've got the people in the district. And I try to tell senators, look, most of them do not follow state issues at all. Now, for a legislator, that's not your world. You live in a bubble of people who are very interested in state issues. They talk to you all the time. You're the legislator. They know where to go. You've just spent 3 or 4 months surrounded by these people talking to you all the time. Yet, these are the important people, if you're going to come back. You're going to be, and if you're going to be able to represent them. I mean, if you're making a tough decision, you want to do what's the right policy, but you're also interested in what do the voters in your district think, obviously. And it may be that you'll have to go against what is popular in your district. Can you do that? Well, I think you can under certain circumstances. You have to be able to do it. So one thing the legislators always talk about is issue speak. They're always going an increase in allowable growth. Anybody know what allowable growth is? It's like super important to every local school in the state. But it means nothing. Legislators will talk about allowable growth all the time. And that whole list of stuff, support Senate File 3223. I don't even know what that is, I just made it up. But they talk like that all the time. Now, that big group of people in your district, they're not really going to understand this too much. You may be passionately involved with it, but they're not going to. Relationships. Now we're talking something. This is, I think, a lot of what I'm doing, again, the narrow part that I'm talking about, is I'm communicating this about our senators. They're hardworking, they're approachable, they listen, they're informed, they care, they're a regular person. They really are like that. I've seen focus groups of people getting together, and they're talking about a state legislative race. They have no idea, for example, basic facts like who controls the legislature. Is it the Democrats or the Republicans? And any legislator can tell you that determines a whole lot. Constituents have no idea about that. I was watching this focus group. These people were convinced the legislators were getting paid $140,000 being driven around in limousines. They're completely thinking of the Congress. And we still have people all the time. They get met, and like the senator was just telling me that. People say, oh, you're back from Washington. No. So that's the situation we're in. I think if you focus on relationships, because again, the senators are constantly thinking about issues. They didn't run to be popular. They didn't run to be talking to people all the time. They all had some interest that they want to accomplish. So they're very into the issue thing. But again, we've got to relate to voters where they're at. I think it's positive, it's easy to understand, and you can have an argument about policy, this healthcare debate. People don't really know one way or the other. But they could get a feeling that you're someone who's easy to listen to, that you're honest. And that kind of relationship, I think, enables a senator to perhaps go against the temporary public opinion in his district if they think that's right. People will give them the benefit of the doubt. People will ask them that question. Right? I think incumbents especially do better in a high information environment. But and that's kind of the question to you is, when you talk about high information, low information, normally you think, well, that means the public knows all the details of the policy. Well, the high information environment I'm looking at is that they know something about their senators, that they feel some connection to them. So some ways that this is done, and all the caucuses do this, send out columns, organize stuff, try to get it in the local paper. Remember all those little papers? And actually we have almost more opportunity to get in the paper and get noticed than people who are in the big cities. My guys who are in Des Moines, this is almost useless for them. I mean, how can they ever get in the register? So we provide those papers with specific information, and we try to do more and more of the work that you might think that a newspaper reporter would traditionally do. Well, we try to provide that information. Be accurate, be specific, be local. Typical picture that you'd see from the State House, right? There's your three leaders standing up talking. At least we have a little poster over there to kind of talk about what they're talking about. Here's it's a little bit better. We have a bunch of teachers in the background, and so it's a little bit more interesting. Well, we're doing photos all the time because the people come down to the legislature to talk to their legislators, right? And so it's kind of the activists or the people who have some concern come down there. This guy over here is a local head of the chamber, and that's Senator Becky Schmitz, who represents part of Johnson County. So we'll take those photos and send them back to the local papers, use them in the newsletters. Photo is much more expressive than another thing. Here, you might know that guy, or maybe the senator will be in a different location. Just some other pictures. So here we've got this guy's a professor at a community college and a student. They're learning about energy efficient buildings. So we're doing the job thing. Typically, a bunch of people. Every one of those folks has a name. They're all from a hometown. This is actually a great photo. This is the Democratic senator, and there's a Republican senator. Bipartisanship. So that's good. Sometimes you send stuff out with little news. Of course, we also always send it out with a caption. So enough with the photos. Now we're moving on. I mean, email, obviously you have to reply, and they get tons of email, and we try to work with them to come up with ways to figure out who's actually coming from your district. And boy, you certainly have to reply to those people. That's just an expectation. If you saw a lot of gray hairs in that photograph when we started with, and that's the joke about the Senate being so much older than the House, we got some of these folks, and we had to really convince them that yes, you do have to reply to all your email. Senator Dandekar, she's a star. This is one of our newsletters. And there'll be a lot of articles that will be prepared by our various staff people, and then the senators go over them. First, I'll go over it, try to take out all the rhetoric, and try to get rid of the legislative ease, and try to make this clear to somebody why this matters to you. I'm really big on the headlines. Senator Dandekar is great, though, because she always starts it out with a personal message that she writes. You can't beat that. This is something from Senator Shane John. He's got one of these guys in these districts, all these little towns. He manages to mention all these little towns right at the beginning. And that's good too. Even if you're not from one of these little towns, you know that he is aware of them. I think he's always talking about some of these different things. Whereas here we've got Senator Heckroth. He's going to all these little towns, and he's going to be there. Again, if you're not one of those little towns, I think you're still getting the message that he's out there working, making himself accessible, and that's what you want. You don't necessarily, I think, want a legislator who's going to agree with you on every single position. How do you know what to do with all those things? But at least this guy is making the effort to find out. And if you did have an issue that you were concerned about, you could contact him. So I think having those events and sending that stuff out, the number of people who turn up at these events, not large. Number of people who see them, well, that's as many as we can get out that know that the invitation is happening.
Rusty?
Yes?
Those things you were just showing, were those on websites, or where were these different things that you're
These are all newsletters.
Okay.
And they're also on the websites. They go out to a list of people who signed up to the newsletter list, and we try to build that list through different things. And of course, it go out to these events, every one of these events would go out to the paper, would go out to the email list. If we send it out to the people in West Union with a subject line saying, I'm going to your place in West Union. We do a lot with email because like we're old-fashioned. We, trying to get better. He put that on his Facebook and try to spread it out any way we can. So another photo, but this is the first person. I got my flu shot. This is a regular person. She gets flu shots, right? She's just like you. And at the bottom, she can provide some helpful information on where you can get your flu shot. More photos visiting. You can maybe find the senator in there. This is another guy with one of these big rural districts traveling around. Here he is in the choir, and we're encouraging them all the time to give us these photos. Get us photos of you and your grandkids. Again, we want to make these people approachable. We're going to get that message out there, which I think is a big benefit for us. There's Senator Heckroth's Facebook page. He's going at this really well. I think he's got about 900 people on it. And so some of that information that we make available, he puts up there. Here's our blog, which was just put together over this last summer by our newest staff member, 24 years old, making me feel very old and very technologically out of it, which is not where I traditionally am. But we have these various stories up here, and of course it's easy for the senators to put these on their Facebook pages, and that's the idea. We're trying to provide some raw information. For us, it's all about the district, almost all about it. Listening posts. This is one of these messages that goes out to the listening post. The subject lines are so important. I mean, you know, when you're talking about communications like this, just getting the email message from the senator addressed to you with a subject line that mentions your town, well, that's a good connection. You know, it says that you care about this person in some way. And people like getting the invitation, but already, I think I've already accomplished a lot. They just see that subject line in their mailbox. We do radio and video. We're working on that. Here's an example of some audio stuff where we're recording snippets from a press conference, and then we send that out to radio stations, maybe in a particular district or statewide. Radio stations, just like every other media organization, losing people, don't have as many people to do stories. So we'll provide them with stuff. And down here it says there's transcripts. So they can either use that, they can take a chunk of it out, they can just read it. You know, it's just a better, more easy to use type format. These are some things we put up on YouTube. You can go look for yourself. Iowa Senate YouTube. Still trying to figure out how this works. We have great people. They give great statements occasionally. Lots of times, if you don't understand what's going on, you don't know what Senate Bill 3438 is or what that term is, these are hard to watch. But there's audiences that are in favor of it. We just did a bill for chiropractors the other day to expand their involvement in Hawkeye. Well, put that YouTube up and then tell the groups that represent those people, try to get into their networks, right? So maybe that'll work somewhere. This is the Superstar video that we had. There is, maybe you can't read that over there, almost 120,000 views of this video. 100,000 of them happened the first time, the first day and a half. We were in the top 10 on YouTube. If you could imagine what the other YouTubes were that were competing with us. But that was fantastic. This is the first session of the Senate after the Supreme Court in Iowa declared that marriage had to be open to people of the same sex. And this is Gronstal replying to the challenge, you know, you're going to bring this up so we can have a constitutional amendment to overturn it, and he's saying no. Well, those kind of dramatic things don't happen that often. The reason we have 120 is it's very dramatic, national importance, organized groups. People want, you know, spread the news of this thing. It's amazing to me how quickly it grew. And when I say it had 100,000 in a day or two, well, that means it hasn't really had much sense, right? But it's very interesting. Senate Democratic interns. Yes, this is my internal pitch here. We couldn't do any of this stuff without interns. And basically, there's two of us working on this. I have an advantage over people who work in the House in that we're half as big, so we don't have as many people, many senators to support. And it is kind of like a sausage operation, right? I'm mass producing this. Love to have people like Renee because they can do all kinds. They bring all kinds of talent, and they're comfortable with this themselves. But I'm working with people who have plenty of communication skills, very sharp, but just maybe not in some of these areas. So interns make it possible for us to do that. These two right here, Tina and Bryn, they're University of Iowa interns. There is a program at the Papa John thing, it's the University of Iowa internship thing. And finally people from Iowa can come over and intern for us because we can't pay. Sorry. And why would you know, it's a big thing to ask for somebody to drive over. These folks are getting a stipend. So they have their apartments in Iowa City, and they're getting paid enough by the university to have a job in Iowa. There are people in Des Moines. There's people in the governor's office and other staff, and we love our people. So that would be great. And we'd love to talk to any of you. We're kind of now trying to go a year long with that stuff. It's a good thing to do, and our senators are fun to work with. I point out the guy on the left is a colonel in the Army National Guard.